It is now 5:01 p.m. Pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5, Section 551.041 of the Texas Government Code of the Texas Open Meetings Act, notice was given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville would conduct a regular meeting on Tuesday, January 19, 2021 at 5 p.m. via the WebEx teleconference meeting link provided at the City of Brownsville Agenda Center. This notice and meeting agenda are posted online at the Agenda Center. The members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting hosted through WebEx teleconference can join with the telephone numbers provided at the Agenda Center. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to offer public comments as provided by the agenda and as permitted by the presiding officer during the meeting. A recording of the meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. So, Mayor, it is now 5:02 and we have a quorum, so you can call the meeting to order.
I will now call the meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. We do have some feedback from somebody's microphone. If you can work on that, please. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself. I can't hear you. You're muted. Yeah.
Okay, next up is our invocation, and I believe Pastor Brad Morris is present to present that.
Yes. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for the many blessings we have here in Brownsville and in the United States of America. Lord, we thank you for, help us to remember to be blessed, to be grateful for our blessings. Lord, we ask you to heal those who need healing, comfort those that have lost loved ones. And Lord, we lift up our nation to you today. And Lord, we ask you to continue to bring clarity, continue to bring truth, and bring us all together around you and your biblical values, Lord God. Help us to come together as a nation. Lord, we ask you to bless this meeting here today. We ask for a special anointing on our mayor, our city commissioners, and everyone that presents anything in this meeting for the best for the city of Brownsville. In the name of Jesus Christ. And now we'll have a short moment of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has been spoken. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Our next item is our public comment period, and we have 3 people who submitted public comment forms. The first of which is Mr. Paul Laverme. Mr. Laverme, are you present? Okay, Mayor, we don't see Mr. Laverme on here. So
I don't see him on there either, so we'll go ahead and skip to the next person.
Okay, the next person is Lawrence Fernandez. Mr. Fernandez, are you present?
Is that Gene?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Gene, I see you. I don't hear you, though, so as soon as you're ready, sir, you've got 2 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can, yes, sir. Welcome.
Very well. Well, a happy New Year to you all. I haven't seen you since the last round. I don't want to get saddened by the fact that the soccer restoration project is not on the agenda. I'm just going to think positive for all of that. I'm going to email Commissioner Skolonsky after this session in order to ask her the particulars of that. One thing I do want to emphasize is the fact that, Mayor, you and I had a conversation at the end of last year on the subject of the importance of putting water back into that Resaca area at the Jakku. whatever condition there is on that partnership with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and UB and City of Brownsville, I ask that that particular issue of issuing a little bit of water into that waterway be looked at, please, because it's hard to tell in the winter period here if any of those cypresses are unhealthy or not. But let's just hope and pray that they are. And I have the good faith in all of you that we will do that. So that's basically all I have to say. I thank you so very much for your attention on this issue for all this past number of years. And please, let's work together on this.
Thank you, Gene.
You're welcome.
We'll go ahead and, I'll go ahead and do my part on that, sir. Thank you.
I have faith in you, Trey.
The next public comment form that we received was from Bill Berg. Mr. Berg, are you present?
I did see Bill on here earlier. Bill, if you're there, go ahead and unmute, and you got a couple minutes, sir. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager, if you're here too. I am Bill Berg, and a resident of West Brownsville, and a member of Save RGV. We're formerly Save RGV from LNG. We are dedicated to making the Rio Grande Valley a better, more livable place. SpaceX is having a wonderful effect on Brownsville. It's exciting for school children, and SpaceX is working with the university through this Stargate program. We are sending our comments this Friday, the end of the comment period, to the Federal Aviation Administration, asking for a rigorous environmental impact statement rather than the simpler, non-adjudicated environmental assessment proposed by SpaceX. We note that the original environmental impact statement, EIS, was for 12 Falcon and Falcon Heavy rocket launches a year. We note they have never launched a single Falcon from the Boca Chica site. However, they have closed Route 4 to Boca Chica Beach way over the EIS specified 180 hours per year. There were 225 hours of closure of Highway 4 in the last 3 months of 2020. Closures and even announced possible closures of Route 4 prevents beachgoers from going to the beach and fisherfolk from fishing there. There have been wildfires resulting from rocket testing for the new Raptor rocket to be used in the Super Heavy. A fire is not an unexpected outcome of a test during the research and development period of a rocket. Perhaps the launch facility is not the best place for development and testing of rocket engines. Damage to the neighboring national wildlife refuges resulted from the fires. SpaceX appears to be planning to use liquid methane, that's LNG, and liquid oxygen to power the Starship and the Super Heavy booster. They have proposed in their environmental assessment that they are going to drill wells at their Boca Chica site and purify and liquefy the gas they get. So there may be an LNG facility at the same place where they're testing rocket engines. Their proposal says they will be also venting methane at the LNG facility, and certainly they'll be venting it during launch. That happens during every launch.
That's time, Mayor.
Mayor, are you ready to move on to the next item?
Yes, we are. Thank you. Thanks, Bill. I got your letter as well. Thank you.
Our next item is our work session. Item 1, Health and Wellness Department, COVID-19 update and work session.
Okay, who do we have here on this item? Is it Dr. Rodriguez?
Yes, Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, good evening. So tonight I wanted to present, and let me begin by saying thank you for all the support. I want to also update the community on our activities on the boots on the ground, the current outreach that we're doing, the drive-through testing, what is the status of our COVID rates in Brownsville, and then what's on everyone's minds, vaccine updates. The city of Brownsville continues to see a TSA rate in the Rio Grande Valley of 21.57%. And our drive-through data continues to show that COVID in Brownsville is still running elevated above state averages at our 26.64%. As I go into our boots on the ground campaigns, this is just a reminder of where we stand today. And as I message to our citizens today to continue sanitizing their hands, social distancing, and wearing a mask. And soon we'll be able to have a conversation about vaccination. But what is the impact and where does Brownsville stand today? Our boots on the ground, March 2020 through the end of December for 2020, reached 48% of Brownsville households, totaling 24,835. We feel that this campaign came about because of the huge support that we got from UT Health with the report that they send to us on a regular basis, and just to educate, make our citizens aware. This has been very productive for us because as UT Health shares with us the hotspots, we are able to deploy our boots on the ground to the hotspot areas and give relevant outreach information to try and maintain our positivity rates manageable within certain areas. And over the next few slides, you'll see how Brownsville has been able to be successful with some of that drive-through testing. March 25th through January 14th, our latest numbers, we've been able to test 17,100 individuals. To date, we have been able to support our uninsured with 4,285 and our insured 7,098. Keep in mind that the insured pay for their services and the uninsured are supported by our testing. And very soon, the City Commission recently voted to approve some new tests through UT Health. And we're about 3 weeks away from having those tests available to us through the CARES funding. And that will bring our costs even lower and a faster turnaround time. And this will all be done in Brownsville. To date, we have had 4,553 positives to our drive-through and 12,425 negatives. Something that I just want to remind our citizens, something the city did was we were one of the first cities in South Texas, the only city in South Texas, everyone else was doing county level to be able to offer this service. And we continue this because it's still something that our citizens continue to benefit from. Next slide. Something that the City of Brownsville Office of Emergency Management and the Public Health Department worked together was our BTX COVID-19 hotline. To date, this hotline, which our residents can reach at 956-394-0012 for COVID-related matters, has taken 3,061 calls. The services available are both in English and Spanish, and we do return calls back to individuals to help them and assist them with things like registering on the website for testing or canceling an appointment, or if they don't have internet access, being able to do over the phone registration. Something that's been very successful for us, and we continue to message the public about this hotline number. Next. So this is a chart. This past week, the county did and the City of Brownsville joined forces to have a vaccine clinic. Our number one inquiries for last week were the COVID-19 vaccines, followed by assistance with a questionnaire, and then COVID-19 resources. So we continue to fill a void in our citizens whenever they have questions. We've been very successful in messaging, and we will continue to do this as long as we need to provide the service, and as long as COVID-19 rates are still present in Brownsville. Next slide. So one of the key elements of our mayor's declaration has been the ability to go from 75% to 50% occupancy when we exceed a 15% TSA infectious rate. I just wanted to show a comparison. The green bars that our citizens will see in this graph are Laredo, the blue are Corpus Christi, and the yellow is Brownsville. We've been holding steady. The holidays did increase our numbers, our TSA infection rates, where it triggered the 50% occupancy. We are still under that mandate. We will not come off of it until we see 7 days of a positivity rate of less than 15%. Today's latest number was at 21.57%, and we continue to measure this. So to the citizen, what does this mean? It means that the hospitals at this point have an increased number of patients. Their bed capacity is always going to be a concern of us. And that's one of the reasons that we message through the threat matrix, and we continue to message through the boots on the ground so that our citizens know that we know there's COVID out there, but when it impacts the healthcare system, actions like going to a 50% occupancy are key determinants for us to be able to control the pandemic. Next slide. So you've seen this before, and it's a longitudinal look at our actions. The latest GA32 occupancy decrease that we were able to do, Mayor, as you've seen, it's had an impact, and we continue to see that there's been a slight leveling. The numbers have not increased as sharply as we've seen in other regions of South Texas, but I don't want to give the wrong messaging. We still need to continue wearing our masks, social distancing, and sanitizing, because if we don't continue those activities, we will see a repeat of what we saw in late June, early July. So a reminder to our residents, you are doing a good job in Brownsville, continue that, but our rates still remain elevated, and you must continue to, we ask you that you continue exercising prudence and limiting activity outdoors. Next slide. So confirmed cases by age group in Brownsville. For the pandemic response, we've seen that the age groups in their less than 20 and 20 to 29 have been the people who have been mostly impacted the most by COVID, but they've also been asymptomatic. And you will see that as we go to the older age brackets, 60 to 80 plus, they're the ones that are having poor outcomes. But I wanted to share with our citizens that although the younger people are the ones that are carrying the COVID-19 into their homes, this is meant to be a message to our young people to continue reminding themselves that they are part of the solution with us, and we ask them to exercise prudence when going home to their parents or their grandparents, because to date, they continue to be the largest group of COVID positive cases in Cameron County. Next slide. So this is important as we transition from age to mortality. As you can see, the age groups that have mostly been impacted by COVID has been those individuals who are above the age of 60, and actually anywhere from your 40s above, you see the big disparity and impact of how COVID is affecting these groups. We now know that there are many comorbidities, such as diabetes, obesity, chronic health diseases, cancer, and even pregnancy and smoking are some of these. But by far most, the elderly are the most at risk. And the older of age that you are, the more likely that you are to have a poor outcome due to COVID-19. Next slide. So this slide just means to represent that we continue to see cases in Brownsville of fatalities. The numbers continue to hold steady, but I want to remind our citizens that these numbers don't get updated as quickly as we want to, but these are hospital numbers coming in through our city secretaries. And we continue to tell the story to our citizens that they need to access healthcare early, because one of the reasons that we see high fatalities in this case is because people are waiting too late into the healthcare system. So we want to make sure that those services are available for older people who can integrate into a healthcare system earlier than later. Next slide. So this is a slide that we shared, that UT Health shares with us. I want to explain a little bit to the public. The gray line that you see above is activity level last year. The blue lines are activity levels this year. If you look at the far right, we continue to see the same level of activity compared to last year, meaning that this data is gathered through cell phone movement. So although we're currently at a threat matrix level 4, we don't see residents remaining at home. We continue to see much more increased levels of activity. And one of the key determinants of trying to reduce the pandemic would be to have people to limit their movement if possible. And we see the difference in cases when people did stop moving, as you noticed back in early 2000, April, early 2000, our positivity rates, our infectious rates were real low. Most recently, in January, the activity continued to be active. November, December, and January. And the mask policy has probably been the reason the rates have not increased as much as they had. But certainly limiting mobility would be another measure that we ask our citizens to continue to consider, and only do essential traveling or essential movement within the city. Next slide. So this is a visual reminder to our citizens as a PSA. Under a severe level, residents are asked to minimize contact with others, avoid leaving home except for the most essential needs, and always plan and have supplies should they be not able to get supplies to contact. They can contact the COVID hotline as well. And we've been working with area providers to facilitate, especially in the elderly, to reduce their travel during these times. Next slide. This criteria determine threat to Brownsville. If you look at the far right, we are currently trending our virus transmission over the last 7 days continues to increase. Our 7-day PCR test is at 731 compared to 378 the week before. And our testing 7-day positivity rate, according to DSHS data, is 14.58. The number, we won't say it's decreasing because certain tests over the holidays have impacted our percentage numbers. But what I would tell you is the drive-through data that we're seeing continues to be above 20%. We're at 24% now. And for that reason, we continue to remind our residents that hospital capacity is still limited at 60-70%. However, their ICUs are at 100%. And most people that do go to the hospital need to be able to have the services that they need, including those of the intensive care unit. So we will continue at a determined threat level 4 for the time being. And just want to remind our citizens that we are into week 53 and limited, and our ability to continue testing is present. So we encourage people to have themselves tested, be proactive, and take the measures needed to self-isolate or quarantine in place. Next slide. Vaccines. So on Friday, January 15th, city staff worked with a local provider and the county to provide COVID-19 vaccines at the Brownsville Sports Park. The fire department, the Office of Emergency Management, and other city departments, including ours, worked together to provide the vaccines through our vouchers system. We will be working in the near future to do similar events involving the fire department and the public health department. As of today, what I can tell you is we have 2 providers who have already expressed interest in working with us, and we are working with the state to finalize some documents, and we see that in the near future we will be able to release more information about additional vaccines coming to Brownsville. And we want to encourage our citizens to take advantage of the current opportunities that are available through UTRGV, through Cameron County, and through third-party providers. We are looking ourselves at becoming an additional health provider in the near future. and that information will be messaged to the public once we have time, dates, and location. And that information will be coming sooner than you realize. I will be briefing the mayor, commissioners, and city manager's office as this information gets confirmed in the next 24 to 96 hours. Honorable Mayor, Commissioners, this concludes my report. Any questions?
Dr. Rodriguez, thank you so much for the presentation. And I think it's important for our citizens to know that the city is still doing its drive-through testing. I know that based on the number of positives we're seeing, the numbers have gone up. The positivity rate has gone up as well. And I know that there's a lot of local clinics that are also doing the testing, but the city is still doing it. So I would encourage folks to visit btxcares.com so they can get information and register for the city testing. Thank you for your efforts on the vaccines. And I do want to thank the county for working with us on getting the vaccines for this past Friday's clinic. It was a success. We did over, about 2,300 vaccines. And I think hopefully the county should be announcing information for individuals to get their second doses in the near future. And overall, we're working on vaccine solutions as well. We know that the demand is out there. I hear and get several phone calls and messages every day. I'm sure the other commissioners do as well. So any information we can provide as a city on our website, either point individuals to the state vaccine resource or point them to the county vaccines and provider resources. I think that'd be very helpful as well. But overall, our numbers right now, like I said, the positivity rate is up. Hospital ICUs are full. Their numbers are up as well from definitely over last month and the previous months. And it's trending like January is going to be the highest number of deaths for several months. So let's keep that in mind. And individuals that are coming into the hospitals are also coming in sicker. We were on a hospital call this morning and been hearing that for a couple of weeks. So we saw the numbers. We see that the individuals that are testing positive at higher rates are the younger populations below the age of 20 and 20 to 29. They do seem to have less symptoms, and we see that the mortality in those age groups is extremely low, while the mortality in the 70 plus age groups is extremely high. So please, everybody, just continue to take the same precautions you've been taking. I know it's difficult sometimes, but it's for everybody's safety and for everybody's well-being. And wear your darn mask. So thank you.
Honorable Mayor, I just want to close by, I misspoke on a figure earlier and I want to correct it. When I said the uninsured, I previously said 4,285. That was a typo. The correct number is 9,985. My error. Thank you.
Dr. Art, I have one question that everybody keeps asking me every day, and I just want to make sure that the public has access to this information.
Yes, ma'am.
If you're over 65 or have a family member that's over 65, what resources do you recommend for tracking down these vaccines?
So currently under the state guidance 1A and 1B, the over 65 falls under 1B, and they're considered a priority group. I would encourage them to reach us through our COVID-19 hotline, because what we're going to start doing is they are a priority group, and we will keep them informed and actually return calls to them and let them know if we know ahead of time of where they need to go to be able to be Johnny on the spot and be able to be first ones. We had a conversation with my staff earlier that really this group is a group that because of their age, they're not able to get to the gate as fast as some younger people, but they're a group that we're real concerned about. So we will be working through our COVID-19 hotline to prioritize them to the greatest extent possible, because we know there is a need for them to be vaccinated.
Thank you.
Commissioner, they can also keep checking the HEB pharmacy page and on their own, and periodically when HEB has doses to give, they'll open a link on their pharmacy page and people can register that way. But it depends on how the supply. But that's another thing that they can do on their own.
Thank you.
Dr. Rodriguez, if I may interject, you mentioned that there were the city's negotiating with 2 third-party providers to offer the vaccines in the future. Who are those 2 entities?
Yes, ma'am. So right now they're the individuals we have a contract with who are doing the PCR testing. They have applied, and it's my understanding that they're being approved. So the two providers that we have on record are Reliable and the Port Clinic.
And would there be compensation involved?
I'm working with purchasing so that the vaccine itself is free. And we're working so that the process of vaccines is something where the city essentially offers the space. And I don't have all the answers yet because we're trying to do the drive-through so that it's a mass vaccination event. And we're trying to work with the schools of nursing and other nurses so that the activity itself is done as a very little to no cost to us, but more as something that's already covered through the vaccine federal government process. So I don't have a final answer for you, but I will be happy to follow up and share any more information that I get.
And then just out of curiosity, the consent forms that people have to sign, who's in charge of inputting the data for the state registry?
So there's a form called an MTRAC form. The provider that administers is responsible for submitting that. There's also a second TDEM form that goes into a second system, and that's just to be able to track the number of vaccines that are being utilized. That's also the responsibility of the provider. But to answer your question, Ms. Galansky, something I did not say, we have heard of scams. You should not be paying anything for the vaccine. A pharmacy can charge the administrative fee, but if you present with no money and no insurance, it should not be denied to you.
I just want to take a moment to remind folks as well, as Dr. Rodriguez has about masks, that includes when you're on a trail or in a park. Outside, it's safer because it's fresh air, and yes, you're 6 feet away from people, but you're going to pass people in a park. You're going to pass people on a trail. So please don't forget to carry a mask with you, especially if you're coming up to a group of people that are moving past you on the trail. Do the right thing, protect yourselves and them by wearing a mask and using it in that situation.
I just really want to thank the health department and the city of Brownsville for really taking people by the horns. I wish there's so much more that we could do, but I'm very glad to see how proactive and up to date the health department has been with this.
Well, thank you. Our city management, many department directors and yourselves have been very supportive. And this wouldn't be possible without the team effort that we have going. Thank you.
Anybody else? Rodriguez.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I have a
Yes,
question
sir.
on you mentioned that the ICUs are full to capacity. Now, I don't want the wrong impression with the public, but they're not full to capacity with COVID patients, are they?
No, so thank you for asking. Really good question. ICUs normally are busier in South Texas because we have less beds per capita and we have higher people with diabetes and other diseases. You are correct. The ICUs are busy as a consequence of two things going on. There's always been a bed shortage in South Texas, and COVID just adds to the demands of the beds in the ICU. So you have COVID patients competing for ICU beds right along with people who may have had a heart attack or a stroke. So it's all medical conditions that are
Yes.
tying up the ICU, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so precautions are even more required because of the limited ICU capacity, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up, Art, and keep
Yes,
up
sir.
the good
Anytime.
work.
Thank you. You're welcome.
A question, if I may. What's the status on the scheduler or that scheduling thing?
Yes, so we are working to do a demonstrate. They're going to do a demonstration for us soon. We're working to also iron out some points on the software itself, but from a project management standpoint, we're being told that implementation could be fairly quickly within 10 days because we already have the vaccination module present.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Next
Yes,
item.
The next item is consent agenda items 1 through 6.
Okay, do we have any motions on consent agenda?
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
We'll move on to public hearings. Item 1, public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 2021-1679, ordering and calling a charter amendment election. During the general election being May 1st, 2021, on the questions of adopting 10 amendments to its home rule charter, providing for term limits of mayor and city commissioners, increasing term limit for municipal judges, amending emergency measures, civil service commission, and election procedures to align with state laws, amending parks and playgrounds to align with ordinance, providing for an audit and oversight committee, providing for collaboration of city boards with city commission, and providing for public utilities board collaboration with city commission and related matters. And I believe Ms. Walker is going to present on this item in the slide.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm Elizabeth Walker in the Office of the City Manager. And what we have this evening before you is a one-slide presentation which identifies all 10 of the propositions that we have been directed to include in the ballot for a consideration of a charter amendment election. So the Texas Election Code mandates that charter amendments must be submitted by ordinance, which is why it is we're doing a little different. Positions on the ballot may be considered by resolution. So the resolution was on consent agenda, which the commission just approved. So the positions will be on the ballot. This then is the mechanism to place the propositions on the ballot. In follow-up to the conversation that the commission had last meeting, there are then 10 propositions that we have received feedback either at that meeting or in follow-up to that meeting. And I can go through each of those if you'd like, but I'd like to call attention particularly to proposition number 7, pertaining to parks and playgrounds. And I'd like to call your attention to that because hearing some of the feedback from the commission last meeting, we have broadened the language for consideration in proposition number 7. Initially, what staff had presented to the Charter Review Committee and to this commission was fairly conservative language that only meant as non-substantive changes to kind of update the language. But hearing the conversation from the commission last meeting about how is it that we can try to mitigate those kinds of considerations going forward, by which it is we would have to take these kind of just housekeeping items to a charter election, we examined the charter language more carefully as pertains to parks and playgrounds. And we found that there's a couple of sections that are already codified in Chapter 74. So they're almost already redundant, but by having them separately codified in Chapter 74, that would mean then that there can be updates to those particular sections just by an ordinance. The exception is that one section pertaining to resacas, which was discussed a little bit at the last meeting. And so in your packet this evening, there's a couple of ordinances that I wanted to call your attention to. One, of course, is the ordinance which would call the charter amendment election. It has these 10 propositions as worded with the assistance of legal counsel. It has the excerpt of the charter itself, as well as then like redlined language which illustrates then exactly the words that would be changed in the charter should that proposition pass. It has underlined those words that would be added, and it has struck through those words that would be deleted. Pertaining to Proposition 7, then, there is the potential here to put forward for ballot consideration simply to repeal those sections that would be codified already in Chapter 74, the exception being Resaca's. And so also in your packet for consideration, not for consideration this evening, but just to illustrate, the section pertaining to Resaca's, we could present as an ordinance on first reading before the election, and then bring it back for second reading when it is that there's the election canvass. Should that proposition pass, you would preserve the Resaca language in Chapter 74 to allow for a seamless transition of where it is we would have that language. And then going forward from that date, if the commission is so inclined to make any updates to Resaca's, we could do it through the mechanism of ordinance rather than charter amendment. I'm happy to entertain any questions you have regarding these propositions.
I don't have any questions. Does anybody else have any questions on this? All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here on the side? Okay, hearing that there's nobody, I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing.
I'll move.
We have a motion to close public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Is this only relating to the parks provision, or is it for all of the proposed amendments? Is this just for the parks provision, or is it for all of the amendments?
The ordinance, ma'am, as presented is for all amendments, all 10 propositions. I just wanted to call particular attention to what is worded for proposition number 7 pertaining to parks in follow-up to the comments received from the commission last meeting.
Okay, sure. So in relation to proposition 8 regarding the charter, the audit committee, the language just that would be on the proposition just says like, can we create section 28A, correct? But then in and I guess that the details of 28A will not be decided on, but in the city charter, will it be incorporated that it will be a 5-member board, that they're to be voted on by the board by supermajority, those requirements?
I would ask the city secretary to please bring up the charter amendment ordinance as submitted for first reading.
Ms. Walker, what I'm going to do is, since we have a motion to close the public hearing in a second, we'll go ahead and do that, and then we can have Commissioner Golonsky's questions answered and when we actually take up the item. Is that okay?
Certainly, Mayor. It's a pleasure.
Okay. Those in favor of closing public hearing?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right. Now we're on the item, and go ahead.
So Commissioner Golonsky, if you will find then in the ordinance for the charter amendments as proposed on first reading, what is underlined would be the extent of the language to be added to the charter. It does expressly state the committee shall consist of 5 members within subsection C. The remaining considerations perhaps about the audit and oversight committee that were reviewed by the Charter Review Committee, those then could be preserved through a separate ordinance. In the same spirit as the parks changes, to preserve certain seminal elements in the charter here, but then allow for updates by ordinance elsewhere where codified in other chapters.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure that how it would work. Okay, thanks.
Yes, ma'am. It's our intention to preserve this as best as possible to be a living, breathing document that can evolve with the city.
And sorry, might be more of a legal question, but if for some reason, like an amendment to have certain language conform to state statute does not get a
I'm sorry, Commissioner, you broke off at the
end. No, I'm not sure what happened. She's on mute now. Okay.
Me? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So what were to happen if by some chance voters did not, by a majority, vote to bring that did not vote on an amendment that would make the current city charter conform to state statute? So in that case, the amendment stays as is, but it's not in conformance with the state statute. I guess then the state statute just makes the city charter moot, correct?
That is correct. There's a catch-all constitutionally in state law that whenever there's a conflict between state law and charters and or ordinances, state law prevails. But it's still a good idea to update the charter like we're doing to make sure things are clear within the city's constitution, so to speak. But if something was to be left out or not voted by the population in a certain manner, any conflicts go towards state law.
Okay.
And to mitigate any of those potential conflicts going forward, the language as presented in the charter amendment proposition is intentionally very broad. It doesn't reference a statute by number or even by section. It really just has more of a descriptive identifier. So that should even the statute change, the charter would remain consistent with statute.
Ms. Walker, do we have any other anything else to present on these?
I do not, Mayor.
Okay, this was a public hearing, so we closed it. So now, is there any action?
I'll move that we order and call for a charter amendment election on these items.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank
I'll
you.
be abstaining. Please note, City Secretary, that I'm abstaining from this item.
Yes, Commissioner Tetro, we've noted that. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. All right, next item.
Our next item is public hearing and action on first reading on ordinance number 2021-795-G to amend Chapter 102 Utilities of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Brownsville, Texas, repealing Article 6 Industrial Waste of Chapter 102 Utilities in the same Code of Ordinances, amending, merging into Article 7, and then repealing Article 9 Fat, Oil, and Grease of Chapter 102 Utilities in the same Code of Ordinances, amending and updating Article 7 Wastewater Pretreatment Program Requirements of Chapter 102 Utilities in the same Code of Ordinances, amending various divisional and sectional language in Chapter 102, Article 7 to improve and update the City of Brownsville wastewater pretreatment program to meet the latest regulatory requirements of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, consolidating and repealing two current articles in Chapter 102 into the remaining Article 7 to eliminate duplicate language and improve language location and consistency in order to render amended Article 7 more easily understood by the regulated commercial, institutional, and industrial sewer system users, repealing any parts of prior ordinances inconsistent herewith, providing a severability clause, providing for civil fines and criminal penalties, and ordaining other matters incidental thereto. Brownsville Public Utilities Board, and I believe we have Mr. Juan Cadizales with Brownsville PUB and Ms. Anne Marie Whitco also to present on this item.
Hello, can everybody hear me okay?
We can. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Commission, city staff, members of the public. My name is Ann Whitco. I'm with Ambiotech Civil Engineering Group, and I'm here to provide you an update on some proposed modifications to Brownsville PUB's pretreatment program. In the interest of respecting your time, I've prepared a brief, approximately 8-minute presentation, only highlighting the critical points that I feel are most important for you to know. However, I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have at the end of that time. Next slide. No, you're on. Okay, you're on the right slide. First, I'd like to provide you a quick primer on pretreatment, what it means, what it accomplishes, and how it's implemented. The pretreatment program exists to reduce the quantity of pollutants entering the wastewater stream from local industry into the publicly owned treatment works, or POTW. More specifically, pretreatment aims to prevent interference with the operation of the wastewater treatment plant, prevent the introduction of pollutants that could pass through the wastewater treatment plant and into the receiving body of water, improve opportunities for reuse or recycling of wastewater and sewage sludge, and prevent the introduction of pollutants that could cause health or safety problems to POTW workers, the public, or the environment. One of the primary tools that's used to implement the program is the issuance of permits to significant industrial users. In addition to sampling, reporting, and record-keeping requirements, the permit establishes a set of limits termed technically based local limits, or T-bills, that specify the maximum concentration of a specific pollutant that can be discharged to the POTW. T-bills require regular assessment to ensure that they're adequate in maintaining the health and safety of workers, the public, and the environment, and may periodically require modification based on changing conditions, whether they be regulatory, environmental, or operational in nature. Next slide. Pretreatment regulations were mandated at the federal level to implement sections of the Federal Water Pollution Act, as later amended by the Clean Water Act of 1977. The specific guidelines are laid out in Title 40 of the Code of Federal Regulations, subsection 403. In Texas, the TCEQ regulates POTWs as part of the Texas Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or TPDES program, to reduce the amount of pollutants released to Texas surface water bodies. This program assumed the authority to administer the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, or NPDES program, from the EPA in 1998. The program requires the permitting of wastewater treatment plants discharging to a Texas water body, in addition to providing the guidelines and oversight on how POTWs regulate local industrial discharges. Next slide. The table displayed on this slide shows current T-bills for permitted industrial users discharging to Brownsville treatment plants. These limits have been in place since 2003, and they're included on all industrial discharge permits. While the majority of these limits are still effective in meeting the standards and requirements of Brownsville PUB's TPDES permit, the TCEQ has informed staff that the copper limit, highlighted in yellow, needs to be updated. When the copper limit was developed back in 2003, it was based on a TxTOX aquatic life limit of 138 micrograms per liter for the South Plant discharge point into the Rio Grande. TxTOX stands for Texas Toxicity Modeling Program, and it's one of the standards used for developing local discharge limits. This limit of 138 micrograms per liter resulted in a maximum allowable headworks loading rate of 26 pounds per day. The current TxTOX aquatic life limit has been reduced to 7.5 micrograms per liter, which allows for a maximum allowable headworks loading of only 4.6 pounds per day. As such, the current limit of 7.48 milligrams per liter is too high to meet this new significantly reduced standard. The new proposed standard for copper, as calculated by the TCEQ, is 0.5 milligrams per liter. Any modification to a T-bill needs to be approved by the control authority, in this case, Brownsville PUB and the City of Brownsville, and is subject to public readings before final adoption. The limit, however, must be approved for the city to stay in compliance with TCEQ requirements. Next slide. This slide illustrates quarterly sampling data from all of the city's current significant industrial users for the time period spanning 2015 through 2020. The concentration values displayed on the y-axis only goes up to 0.9 milligrams per liter, well below the current copper standard of 7.48 milligrams per liter. As such, you can see that there have been no exceedances of the current copper limit since 2015 by any permitted industrial user. The red line that you see going horizontally across the graph illustrates the proposed copper limit of 0.5 milligrams per liter. The purpose of showing this graph of historic sampling data with respect to the new proposed limit is to illustrate that all of the industrial permittees are already meeting this limit fairly consistently. There's only one historic sample point that would be in excess of the new limit. As such, it's not believed that the new limit will place a significant burden on any current industrial users. Next slide. In addition to the proposed changes to the copper limit, Brownsville PUB pretreatment staff, in conjunction with legal counsel, is proposing a change to the current city ordinances that are in place that give Brownsville PUB the legal authority to implement the pretreatment program and TPDS requirements. Currently, there's a pretreatment ordinance that regulates industrial discharges to the POTW and a FOG, or fats, oil, and grease ordinance that regulates non-domestic discharges from industries including restaurants, food manufacturers, hospitals, hotels, nursing homes, car washes, automotive and body shops, etc. Pretreatment staff's proposing that these two separate ordinances, each dealing with pretreatment prior to discharging into the wastewater system, be combined into a single streamlined ordinance. The purpose is to make it easier for dischargers to locate relevant regulations with respect to wastewater discharge and make the process clearer and more concise. Other than the two bulleted items on the slide, there are no significant changes to the content of either ordinance beyond the addition of minimal language clarifications. The only two substantive changes to the ordinance is first, the modification of the copper T-bill as previously discussed, and second, the inclusion of language to regulate discharges from dental offices, specifically discharge from dental offices that may contain dental amalgam. This is based off of a new TCEQ rule that was adopted in 2018 and for which compliance requirements became effective in 2020. That concludes my summary of the proposed changes to the pretreatment program. I'm happy to take any questions at this time. Thank you.
Do you have anybody here who's going to be translating all of that into regular English for us non-engineers, Ann?
Well, I was trying to do that myself, but apparently I must have failed.
No, I got it. I understood it. Thanks.
Thanks.
Do we have any questions for Ann? Okay, this is a public hearing. Is anybody here on this item? Okay, do I have a motion to close public hearing?
Motion to close public hearing.
We have a motion to close. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? All right. Now, any action on the item? Do we have any motions?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Whitco.
Now we'll move on to items for individual consideration. Item 1, consideration and action to award a 5-year contract for financial advisory services to Estrada Hinojosa and Company Incorporated. Financial services.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Lupe Renal, Finance Director. On the line is Mr. Noe Hinojosa, in case you have any questions. The city has retained Estrada Hinojosa and Company, a professional municipal financial advisory firm since 1992, to advise the city on issuance of indemnities, refunding, and annual disclosure requirements. The city's most recent contract expired November 2020.
Hey,
And,
Mayor, I'm sorry, but my program crashed on that last item. I don't know if she's still on. I did have a question if it's not too late.
I think she's gone, Commissioner.
Okay. I'll follow up later. That's all right.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, it's all right.
Go ahead and continue. Okay. The city's most recent contract expired in November 2020, and the city's seeking to renew the contract to provide these continual services. The services provided by Estrada Hinojosa meet the legal requirements of a financial advisor, and the exception of being a professional service is applicable. Can you put in the other presentation, the other PDF document? I'm going to go over briefly on the firm credentials and highlight them. I'm sure I'm not going to do a great job as Mr. Hinojosa did, but I'll go over real quick. Estrada Hinojosa founding partners Bob Estrada and Noe Hinojosa are native to the city of Brownsville. In fact, their first contract was awarded by the city of Brownsville back 29 years ago. The firm has become the largest Hispanically owned full-service investment banking specialist in municipal financial advisory and bond underwriting services. The firm is a Hub certified minority business enterprise regulated by independent broker-dealer. Regulated as an independent broker-dealer by the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority (FINRA) and the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC), registered as a financial advisor and is subject to the governing rules of the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board (MSRB). All of its bankers are registered representatives and subject to the governing rules. The firm's leadership doesn't only make up-to-date operations of the organization, but they're also involved in the industry-related policymaking and advocate boards of the Securities Industry Protection Corporation, American Securities Association, the MSRB, the Federal Reserve Bank, Securities Financial Association, and so forth. The firm currently provides financial services for underwriting services, financial and underwriting services for 45 states and the District of Columbia. The sectors of their experience are from the state and local governments, cities, states, school districts, housing, economic development, and so forth. Last year, they were ranked number 2 firm in the state of Texas and number 5 in the nation. If you go over to the PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to be going over some recent activities of the city. To highlight, in 2018, we through the help of the financial advisor, we started looking to restructuring of debt and refunding. As of today, we have an estimated about 40 million in debt capacity for capital improvements and to support growth and development. Why is this important? This is important because creating capacity is important because it gives us a flexibility to leverage low interest rates environment and additional refundings. In November of 2020, there was an opportunity with Texas Water Development Board to enhance drainage projects. It was $7 million, basically $7 million no interest rate from the Texas Water Development Board. They also provided their expertise in navigating the services and the financial portion with the Texas Water Development Board. We had 4 recent refundings in December of 2019 and 2020. The combination of the refunding saved the city about $1.225 million in savings. They are instrumental in helping the city in when we have bond ratings to make sure that the city guides us and provides us the expertise and and getting us to reaffirm our bond ratings since 2018, 2019, 2020. And for 2021, under the capital improvement program in process, we're working with them in order, as part of the capacity, to be able to apply and get some financial assistance through the Texas Water Development Board, again, for drainage projects that it's basically $6.7 million in grants and about $7.7 million in low interest loans. In summary, the city is requesting that the contract for 5 years be awarded to Estrada Hinojosa and Company. Their contract is exactly the same contract as a previous five-year contract, and the fees remain the same. Do you have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions on this item?
I'll make the motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second? I'll go ahead and second that. Is there any additional discussion on this item? Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Or I've had to, can anyone hear me? Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
I have a question. Mr. Hinojosa, he gets paid based on like the transaction, correct? It's like ends up being, I guess, a percentage of that.
There was a fee schedule attached to the packet item that shows his fees. Some of it's a percentage based on different costs. But Mr. Hinojosa, do you want to elaborate on that?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor, members of the Commission. Noe Hinojosa here in Dallas, Estrada Hinojosa and Company. And our fee is basically contingent to the par amount that you sell bonds on. And it's literally somewhere between 85 cents a bond to $1.10 or $1.20, thereabouts. And I believe that fee schedule goes back to 1992. You all started us back then, and we thank you. I had to say that, Commissioner.
So 28 years with the city, and you're also at PUB, and I think you have BISD in the port, correct?
And the county of Cameron, yes, ma'am.
Everywhere.
We owe everything to Brownsville. And by the way, we just got hired by the state of Connecticut a year ago, and we're doing a transaction with them. So thank you, ma'am.
And I know you like to put the Dallas Cowboys Stadium on your resume as well, right?
Well, I had to put Brownsville Airport first.
All right. Do we have any additional discussion on this item? Okay, those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
very much.
for being here.
I know. Thank you for everything.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Item 2, consideration and action to award contract work order number 2020-002 to Half and Associates for the City of Brownsville 2020 Flood Improvement Projects Program Management Services in the amount of $693,000 pursuant to the on-call term contract for engineering, surveying, and miscellaneous service projects. RFQ number QES-40-0620, Engineering and Public Works.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Doro Garcia. I'm the Assistant City Engineer with your City of Brownsville. I just want to start off really quick by talking a little bit about the Texas Water Development Board projects, because in the next, on this agenda and in the months to come, we will be having several items before you, and I just want to make sure that we're aware that we have one program that's already been awarded and we're already working on design. This is for the program that we recently submitted applications for, okay? On this particular project, Half and Associates would be helping us coordinate all 3 projects that we applied for grants from Texas Water Development Board. One of the projects is for the flood protection planning for the watersheds. The other one is for the Impala pump station and the improvements that the second phase of improvements that'll be done to the Impala pump stations. And for the SCADA project, this is the second phase as well of the SCADA project that'll be going on in our wonderful city. And what Half Associates would be helping us with in this particular project is doing all the coordination and communication with the Texas Water Development Board. As you all know, our staff is very limited right now with the number of projects that we have. We've been very fortunate in succeeding in getting these low interest loans and free money from the state. So we're really looking forward to getting your support and bringing on Half Associates to help us coordinate this program to make sure we don't miss any deadlines and stay on top of all the work that we're going to have ahead of us. On this particular project, the amount is for $693,000. This is the budget for the project. It does not mean that we're going to spend all this amount. It'll be based on the amount of services that we request from them. But this is the estimate that we included in our proposal. Just so you know, this right now we're doing it a little bit ahead of the game. This proposal right now is not funded, and we're looking for you all's approval on this particular project. That way, when we get the green light from Texas Water Development Board, we don't waste any time in moving forward with these projects, because the schedules on these projects are really, really tight. If you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them at this time.
Mr. Garcia, just to clarify, whenever these types of engineering projects are done, they're on a rotation basis, right?
We used to have a rotation list. The last proposal, the RFQ that went out back in December, is now on-call term contract for engineering and surveying. And now the selection is based on qualifications and recommendations from city staff.
Is there an evaluation process done on qualifications for a project like this?
I'm sorry?
Is there an evaluation process? Like, is there some type of evaluation process followed that is like, you know, some sort of number or thing, or how do you judge one firm against another on something like this?
We did the initial RFQ is when we selected the firms that were capable of providing the engineering and surveying services that were most likely utilized by the city of Brownsville. So the 10 firms that we selected are capable of performing the projects. Granted, some of the firms are better suited for smaller projects. This particular project is rather large. Therefore, selecting Half Associates, who has a national base and a local office, we felt was the most suited for this particular project.
Mayor, and the reason we went away from a rotation list is because what we were finding is that some of them were not aligning, some of the projects were not aligning with the expertise of the next rotation list. Sometimes they were, they have impediments with regard to staffing, or they had too many jobs at the same time. And what we felt is, let's match the developers with the, you know, the contractors and engineers with the right, you know, with the right expertise, right? And so we're not awarding something to a contractor that's not very, or an engineer that's not very experienced in a particular area. Also, you know, we have run across in the past where, for example, we needed an engineer that was, for example, aware of Texas TxDOT requirements, and unfortunately the next person on the rotation list was not familiar with TxDOT requirements, which made it a very difficult process. In fact, we had to pretty much mentor them in TxDOT requirements. And so that was one of the reasons which caused then delays in our projects. So what we found is, you know, who are those firms that are aware of TxDOT requirements? Who are those aware of Texas Water Development Board requirements? Maybe there's certain unique environmental requirements related to specific FAA or FTA funding. And so that was the rationale by which we really wanted to understand the expertise of each engineering firm versus just going to the next rotation list. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to follow up on the mayor's question. So if I understand the structure, the departments get to choose which contractor for a particular job. And that's based on the list of contractors that are on the term contracts, right?
Yes.
And at what point do we get to either remove or add people to that list?
That list was brought to the City Commission back in December for selection, and they're on call for 2 years with a 2-year option for renewal.
Okay, so in 2 years, we get to review again who's on that list.
Yes, sir.
And when a department decides on a particular contractor, do you run it through the management, city management, for some kind of approval?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and if I may, Commissioner, I believe we recently shared a spreadsheet where we showed the diversity in the selection of the firms. So we do maintain a spreadsheet that shows how the work has been distributed amongst the firms. So in light of not having a rotation, we still find a way to try to spread the work around. But to Helen's point, we want to try to blend the best of both worlds with matching expertise, with diversifying the workload. So we are monitoring both of those factors, and we can always share that spreadsheet with the commission as well.
Right, and that was kind of one of the reasons I was asking the question, because I just want to make sure the process itself continues to be, fair and equitable and spread out amongst the different vendors or engineers in this case that are out there. Because I know that the process was pretty fair and balanced before, but now since there's a kind of different process going, I want to make sure that we stay as close to that as possible. I understand the qualifications part. I understand why that's important. I just want to make sure that there's no sort of disparity with any of the firms that are being hired. Thanks.
Yes.
Do we have any motions on the item?
I'll make the motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 3, consideration and action to award contract project number 2020-001 to Plager Engineering LLC for the City of Brownsville Impala Drive Pump Station Rehabilitation Project in the amount of $240,000 pursuant to the on-call term contract for engineering, surveying, and miscellaneous service projects. RFQ number QES-40-0620, Engineering and Public Works.
Good afternoon once again, Mayor, Commissioners. On this particular item, we're once again using the same qualification list for the engineers for this project. In this particular project, we selected Plagar Engineering, who has helped us do some work previously out at Impala Station and was a former city engineer. And in this particular project, it's for the 2019 loan that we got approved from Texas Water Development Board. And on the consent agenda items, you had an item for emergency repairs to this pump station. Those are the repairs that we're doing just in short term to hold us over while we complete this design. This design is to basically modernize our existing pump station in the Impala pump area. We are looking to either replace or add 4 new pumps. Our engineer will make that determination. And in this particular project, he will be analyzing what we have existing and making recommendations in line with our application to Texas Water Development Board to upgrade this pump area, provide a report so that we could submit to Texas Water Development Board for approval, and then move forward with construction documents so that we can advertise this project for construction in the near future. If you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them at this time.
I just hope they're adding 4 pumps instead of replacing them.
Yeah, this is a much needed project. It's been pending for a long time. So I'm glad we're getting it done.
And I think it's important for people to know that this money that we're spending, this pump is the main pump that keeps our city clear of water when it when we have hurricanes and torrential rains.
The current pumps, you know, we're fortunate that they're holding on by a thread that were installed in the early 56. You know, that it's long overdue. You know, a lot of times, you know, we say the technology has improved. You know, fortunately, the pumps that we have there were very well built in their time. You know, the idea is that, you know, we're looking to enhance this area. This is one particular project. We do have a second phase for the station that's included in the loan and the grant applications that were submitted. Plus, we also have additional Impala pump area improvements in our GLO application. You know, hopefully we'll get some of that funding so that we can continue to improve this area.
I'll make the motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4, consideration and action on resolution number 2021-008 in support of SpaceX Starship Super Heavy project at Boca Chica City Manager's Office.
Mayor, Commissioners, it's a pretty straightforward resolution. As you know, and was mentioned earlier, SpaceX is under an environmental review by the FAA. The public comment period closes on January 21st, so 2 days from now. And so this is a resolution supporting the activities of SpaceX and supporting the environmental review process. I will entertain any questions if there are any.
Mr. Gonzalez, I know that there was some questions about the language on this, particularly in regard to some FAA items that came across. My understanding is that the resolution itself has been amended on the language. Is that correct?
If that is the wish of the commission, we can certainly. I have two proposals for addition of language. One of them being on the bottom where it says "Therefore be it resolved." Number one would be supports the Federal Aviation Administration environmental review process.
It'd be a lot easier if you could put it up on the screen, or if somebody could. And if not, then you can just, I guess, just summarize it.
Yeah. So the only two additions to the existing resolution would be one number and saying adding supports the Federal Aviation Administration environmental review process, and then number 4 would be encourage the continued collaboration amongst all local entities to address citizen concerns. Those are the only two additions apart from the existing resolution.
Mr. Gonzalez, who's requesting the resolution?
No, there is no request from the resolution. We feel it's important to support the activities, and a resolution is pretty straightforward. So it supports the ecosystem building that we want. It communicates to other space companies, space firms, that the city of Brownsville supports space.
How did you hear about it?
Excuse me?
How did you hear about it? How did you come up with this idea?
I heard about it because there was an article in the Herald, and then there was also you go to the FAA website. It's also there as well.
And you don't have the proposed language to put on the screen?
Doing anything within city limits, or is it?
I don't know if I can share my screen.
The city secretary should be allowing you to do that. Do you receive any kind of concessions or anything from them?
Hold on, Commissioner. Let me see if I can share my screen.
More about
Ramiro, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Here we go. I apologize. There we go. Can you all see this document?
Mhm.
So everything, all the language remains the same. The only thing that would change here would be the ones on the bottom here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The addition, it adds, supports the Federal Aviation Administration environmental review process, and also encourage the continued collaboration amongst all local entities to address citizen concerns. Commissioner, can you repeat your question?
I think Mr. Berg and his group have come under number 4 there, and it has to do with the closings of Boca Chica Beach. Have you had any discussions with them about that?
And my understanding is those discussions occur with the county. The county is the one that coordinates those closures.
Have you had any
I have not had any communication with them.
And have you had any discussions with the county about that?
No, sir.
So have you talked to SpaceX at all? Like, do you know anything about that they've promised about the project?
SpaceX has not communicated any on this resolution.
I think we got a thumbs up from Dr. Berg to include including citizen concerns.
We feel it's a proactive thing to support. It was done. The resolutions in support were done when they did their first environmental review process. So this is only furthering that collaboration.
I'll make the motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion?
If I may interrupt, can you, Commissioner Tetra? I think
I feel
motion to approve as amended would probably be the better motion.
Okay, so move.
Commissioner Neese, will you second that?
I'm moving as he put it on his screen, not the one was in our package, but the one with the additional language.
Well, Commissioner Tetro amended her motion to include that. Commissioner, will you second that?
Yes, I will.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion?
I'm going to abstain because I feel that me representing the whole city is one thing, but then this is more of a situation where individuals of the city of Brownsville should make their public comment, and then I'm going to abstain.
Okay. We have Commissioner Galansky who's going to abstain. Is there any additional discussion on this? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion passes and we have one abstention. Thank you.
Item 5, consideration and action to authorize the city manager to execute a memorandum of understanding between the City of Brownsville and the Housing Authority of the City of Brownsville for the implementation and operation of digital library bibliothèque sites, City Manager's Office.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Commissioners. My name is Marina Solesi. I'm with the Office of the City Manager. Joining us today is Ms. Carla Mancha, the CEO for the Housing Authority for the City of Brownsville, as well as our library team, Mr. Juan Guerra, Director of Library Services. The item brought to you this evening is an MOU between the city and the Housing Authority for the development and implementation of the Bibliotech Brownsville initiative. And this initiative provides access to the library's digital resources to Bibliotech users. Bibliotech is the first all-digital public library in the United States that provides their residents free access to the technology. And this was first started in 2013 in San Antonio in Bexar County to bridge literacy and technology gaps there, and it enhances education and also equips members of the community with the necessary tools for the citizens in this digital age. And so Ms. Mancha will include additional details.
Thank you, Marina. Good afternoon, Mayor Mendez and City Commissioners. And first of all, I want to wish all of you a happy new year. As Marina mentioned, this bibliotech program was created and first initiated in Bexar County. But I want to mention before I start with my presentation that I'd like to acknowledge and give thanks to Congressman Vela and his team, because they were the ones that connected us to the bibliotech team in San Antonio for HACB to consider this type of program in our community. So the HACB Board of Commissioners actually approved the MOU in October of last year with Bexar County, and then the Bexar County Commissioners Court approved it in December. And as Marina mentioned, this was initially, it started in 2013 by County Judge Wolf and his team there in Bexar County. And the goal was and is to connect low-income families and areas of low income to technology resources. So the San Antonio Housing Authority was the first housing authority in the nation, in Texas and in the nation, to partner and implement this at their sites. After Saha implemented this program at their sites, the Laredo Housing Authority saw this as also an opportunity to bring to their community. So Laredo Housing Authority was the second housing authority to implement the bibliotech program. And so now we are trying to bring it to Brownsville, and we will be the third housing authority to be doing that. So the once the MOU is approved this evening by the City Commission, the Housing Authority Board of Commissioners will then entertain this action at their Monday board meeting. So it will be taken to the HACB Board of Commissioners on Monday. This program is in line with the commitment that HACB and the City of Brownsville have made as being part of the Connect Home program, which is in partnership with Everyone On and HUD. And again, the goal is to connect all of our families and address the digital divide. So as of right now, there are 3 sites that we have identified to implement this bibliotech program, to take a bibliotech site to. And one is the Buena Vida Envision Center. The second one is Poinsettia Gardens at Boca Chica, which is currently finishing construction. And the third is Trail Village, which is our tax credit project that is currently under construction now. And as we expand and build new communities, the Housing Authority will also like to look at and entertain in bringing additional bibliothèque satellites to those communities. Know that the bibliotech sites will not just be for HACB families, but for all of the families in Brownsville. So HACB will be responsible to condition the space and purchase the furniture and technology equipment that the families will use. And in addition, we will invest in a physician that will oversee the operations of the sites. The City of Brownsville will provide access to library, electronic, and digital resources. In addition, the City of Brownsville will provide the training for the bibliotech team. I also want to mention that HACB received a $25,000 educational grant this past year, late in 2020, an educational grant from Charter Communications Spectrum for the implementation of this program. So we're excited to bring bibliotech to Brownsville, and if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Do we have any questions? It's a great initiative, Ms. Mancha. Thank you so much for this, and I'm glad that it's not just for HACB, even though if that was the case, it would have been great too. But happy to hear that it's available for all of Brownsville, so thank you.
If there's no questions, I'll move to approve this item.
A motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, consideration and action on offer of purchase by U.S. Customs and Border Protection for the following tracts: RGV-BRP-6301, 0.018 acre, RGV-BRP-6311, 5.460 acres, RGV-BRP-6310, 0.076 acre, and RGV BRP 6401, 11.339 acres in the amount of $170,000, $170,476, and RGV BRP 6200, 1.093 in the amount of $31,039. City Manager's Office.
Mayor, City Commission, I'm gonna present item 6 and 7 together. At the end, there's a recommendation. So the city was approached by CBP to acquire some land for the purposes of border security and border wall. Next slide. They assign these track numbers, so those are the track numbers that we use. It's probably the best way to do it. The track number RGV BRV 6200. This is a 1.093 acre tract, and the appraised value that they gave it, that their appraisal says, is $31,039. I'm going to show you an aerial of the tract. Next slide, please. This is the aerial. So the blue line here that you see is the subject tract, and the red line is the tract that they would like to acquire. This tract is pretty much underneath the B&M Bridge, the southbound side of the B&M Bridge, as you can see, right up along the river. It is city owned. And they, like I said, they estimate the value to be $31,029. Next slide. This is the official survey that they've provided, and that provides some additional detail as far as just kind of the boundaries. Next slide. The RGV 10 project. This came in as one whole request with different tracks in it, and it established the amount to be $170,476. And I'll take you through the three tracks. Next slide. The first tract, this is, you can see Hope Park here on your left, or however you're looking at this. It's on the other side of the border wall, and the area in red is the area that they would like to acquire. This is right underneath basically the Gateway Bridge as you cross over southbound into Matamoros. Next slide. This is the exact survey of the exact area where they would like to acquire. You see that the southbound side of the Gateway Bridge is there. Next slide. RGV BRV 6311. This is basically the acquisition of the levee over by the Fort Brown, behind the old TSC baseball field, and over by the Fort Brown golf course. You can see that this is that they would like to acquire that. There's already some wall there on the eastern side. There is no wall on the golf course side. And so next slide, please. This is an image. We did ask them as to what their intent were by acquiring this levee. If you see the circle right there on this image with in black and white, they do intend to put a gate there, and so we responded with the response that that gate would not work for us there, that we couldn't sell that little piece because that is basically the entrance. Congressman Vela to Fort Brown. Congressman Vela has filed a bill once again a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of days ago, to try to transfer that property to the National Park Service. So that gate for us isn't going to work, and so we're still kind of under negotiations on this tract, or at least that specific issue. We don't really see on the rest of the levy component. We don't really see any issue on a sale there. It's already some of it already has wall, or they're driving on it as we speak. Next slide. This is the survey. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. This is another little tract adjacent to that, BRV 6313. It's just south of that levee, as you can see, and the other tract here. We don't see an issue with this one. It's a tiny little portion of land, and I don't understand why they need it, but it is what it is. And you can see the zoomed in version here on the right-hand side. Next slide, please. And that is a survey of that little property. Next slide. This is the largest tract out of all of them. This is over by the Los Tomates, or the Veterans Bridge. There's border wall there as well. And they're acquiring the southern portion, so between the river and actual the northbound side of the Veterans Bridge. We don't see an issue with the sale of this tract, and so but there are potential further negotiation points here. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. These are all just the surveys. Next slide. And then the final tract is RGV BRP T6313E. This is a proposed 4-year temporary easement. It is a temporary easement for a tower, a border security tower. They had initially proposed $496 for the 4 years of compensation. We basically, we negotiated that up to $496 per year, for a total of right about $2,000 for the lease. This is only a lease, or this is only a temporary lease for 4 years. They are not proposing to acquire this piece of property. Next slide. And you can see it's a tiny little chunk of land here, just south of that levee, over by the university. Next slide. There's that survey. Next slide. So the recommended action is to approve the sale of the BRP 6313 and 6401. Those are basically that tiny little tract, and the tract over by Veterans Bridge, and then table the additional items for additional negotiations and coordination. That is the tract underneath Gateway, the tract over by the golf course. There is some additional coordination needed with TSC and all other parties involved there. And item 7 would be to approve that lease agreement. So I will entertain any questions at this time. I have gone back and forth with the Army Corps on this, and we can anticipate additional, well, we don't know what the administration is going to do at this point, but we can expect additional purchase offers.
I have a question on 6401. That's near the intersection of University Drive and the Expressway?
Go back to 64. Go back on the slides.
Yeah, I'm having a little trouble following your maps and surveys.
6401.
Yeah, the only reason I'm asking is because wasn't the U.S. Fish and Wildlife interested in that tract?
No, sir. That is the. I wish I could share. I wish you could see my arrow. No, but this tract is south of. So if you're on Veterans Bridge coming northbound, it's on your right hand side. So if you look at this image, these are where all the trucks turn off at Veterans Bridge.
Okay. No, that was my question.
Yeah.
The property I was wondering is on the left hand side.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other tracts near the college, none of them are the ones that are they encroaching on the golf course, which, we're trying to look at a birding center there, and the National Parks is trying to restore the Fort Brown embankments. Are there any encroachment on either of those two, either the golf course or the old Fort Brown works, the earthworks?
So we're not recommending approval, Commissioner Neese, for that one. We feel that there's additional negotiations, and more importantly, the issue of the gate. They really want to build a wall our understanding is that they would build the wall on the levee, and then they would put a gate right by where you would go, right by the entrance
to the golf course.
To the golf course, yes.
Yeah, that would be a bad move for us.
Yeah. So we are not recommending the approval of that not only, there's a lot of coordination there, and there has to be resistance there, because we can't have a future national park site behind a gate.
Yeah, and so I would encourage you to talk to Rolando Garza or whoever is the superintendent out there at Palo Alto on that one.
Yes, sir.
Ramiro, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
By doing, this transaction, for example, 16401, you can see the levy kind of, it's not contiguous, where the ownership or the red line kind of dips down. Does that create any issues for us along the levee?
Well, one of the things the commission could advise us on is, I believe that we might own this tract all the way to the river, right? So one of the opportunities could be, if you so choose, that we try to. I mean, they already drive there. They already use it. They should acquire the whole thing almost. Right. And so if you want us to go back and try to see if that is possible, because you're right, you're left with fragmented pieces of land that, one, was not accessible to us. They might not have any development value. So that could potentially be a guidance from you and saying, we're not going to approve anything, go back and negotiate with them. So that is also on the table as well.
Yeah, I just think it's going to create more work down the road at some point for someone, right?
Absolutely.
To fix all this up.
So that is I will go back per your instructions, per the will of the commission.
That's just a suggestion, so I'll leave it to the commission.
So in that vein, would we table it, or what do we do?
Yeah, I think you could table it and just say, keep negotiating with the Army Corps about the purchase south of the wall, right?
Is there any sense of urgency that they need this?
If you ask them, they needed it yesterday. But certainly we could try to negotiate some more points and bring you back hopefully we'll bring them back to you in 2 weeks or something like that.
I would just say that, but if you could do it as soon as possible, because I hate for them to think that we're not trying to cooperate or anything like that, because that's not the case.
Absolutely.
So I'll make a motion to table this item and bring it back in 2 weeks.
I'll second.
All right. By the way, Mayor Mendez left, so I've been notified that I am going to be the mayor pro tem for the rest of the meeting. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Item 7, consideration and action on U.S. Customs and Border Protection offer for RGV-BRP-T63, 13E.207 acres, and RGV-BRP-T63, 13E, a 4-year temporary tower and road and utility easement in the amount of $496 per year for the location of a border security tower, city manager's office.
Commissioner Tetro, to your comment, we want to show faith. We want to show good faith and cooperation. The location of a temporary tower is probably good. And so, as my presentation said, we recommend approval for this easement. It's a 4-year temporary easement, and they are paying just around $2,000 for the 4 years.
I'll make the motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please state aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
We'll move on to board appointments. Item number 1, consideration and action on resolution number 2021-009 to appoint members to the Special Needs Advisory Board, Office of the City Secretary, and Parks and Recreation Department. I'll just briefly present. We had 5 members appointed to this board at the last commission meeting, but the mayor wanted to allow Commissioner Tetro and Commissioner Munguia to make their appointments. So that's why this item was put back on the agenda. That's what we were needing tonight. So if Commissioner Tetro could make her appointment, and then as far as what y'all want to do with the other one for Commissioner Munguia, if you want to postpone it till he can make that appointment, that of course is your choice.
Is there a list of applicants, or is it just an appointment from myself?
Hold on, the list of applicants is, okay, there's your list of applicants.
Okay, I will move to appoint Virginia Pina.
I'll
We have a
second.
motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. On the other appointment for Commissioner Munguia, do we want to wait until the next meeting? Give him a chance to see if he wants to make an appointment?
I'll move to appoint Miguel Gaitan.
All right, we have a motion.
Was there anybody
Second.
from District 3 that was represented on the Special Needs Advisory Board? Or if you could go back, City Secretary. Yes, there is. Okay.
I'll second Ben's motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please state aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries.
I'll move to adjourn.
A
Second.
motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Bye. Have a good one.
We'll see you.
There being no other business to come before the city commission, upon duly made motion, the meeting has ended at 6:55 PM. Thank you and have a wonderful evening.